and welcome. My name's Sam and this is the Little Greenhouse Creates. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for joining me for our last in our final card for this week's stamp set of the week, Yule Tide Village. And welcome to our Funky Fold Friday. So I'm just going to swap cameras and here is our card. I'm calling it a Z fold front card. So you've got this piece on the front, but when it opens, it has that Z fold, should I say? So it's a nice little card, and as I said on Wednesday, it's the kind of card that you hope people will put on their mantelpiece. And if people still have mantelpieces, fireplaces, I don't know, wherever they display their Christmas cards and go, ooh, like that. Who sent you that? So this is the card we're going to create today. So let's bring in our supplies. So I have got Petal Pink. It measures 4 inches by 11. We'll score that a second. I have a piece of Designer Series paper. So again, it's the one that we used, I think it was Monday. This time it's got snowmen on rather than penguins, but I'm using this side. It's 6 by 6, this piece, and we'll cut that down together. Then we've got lots of little pieces. So this is the biggest piece. It measures 3 1/4 by 4 3/4. Then I've got a layering piece which is 3 by 4 1/2. Then we have a white piece which is 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. Then I have, and that's the spare piece, well not a spare piece, that's the inside layer that measures exactly the same as the previous one, which is 2 3/4 by, go on, remind me, 2 3/4 by 4 1/4. Then I have a piece of cardstock which measures 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. There we go. So they are all the pieces. So first of all, let's take our Petal Pink. This is the real red, this is Petal Pink, and we're going to score that together. So I'm going to bring in my scoreboard. Obviously, use whatever device that you prefer. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score it at 5 1/2 inches, so straight down. Then I'm going to go across to 2 3/4 inches. And that is it. That's as simple as it gets, or as difficult as it gets, should I say. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half. So that's straight over, like so. Then you can burnish it. Then you're going to fold this piece back on itself, like so, and burnish. And that literally will give you your Z fold. So then your other piece will all sit on top. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we're going to cut down this piece of Designer Series paper. So this piece is 5 1/2 by 4 inches. So we need it to be, for the Designer Series paper, because it's literally going to cover all of that inside, so it looks like that. It's going to be 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. Now I always say measure twice, cut once, because if you get it wrong, you're going to have problems. So it's 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. Okay, so grab my cutter, which I've managed to cover up with my scoreboard. Okay, so 5 1/4. Go straight through there. And then we're doing 3 3/4. 3 3/4. I'm going to hold on to this piece. That will then fit into there like so. Okay, so now what we need is we need a piece that is going to sit on this here. So as you say, by cutting it that way, we know it's going to fit. So this is 2 1/2. Let's double check. Yeah, it's 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. So we're going to cut this down, or we don't need to. 2 1/4 by 3 1/2. So already 2 1/4. We're now going to turn it round to 3 1/2. Let's just double check. 3 1/2. Yeah. There we go. Right. Then we can now layer all these pieces on. So using my Stampin' Seal, I'm going to layer this piece onto my red. Okay, let's make sure that's straight. There we go. Perfect. Now that is going to get laid onto there. This time I'm going to use my multi-purpose. Okay, so that can sit on there. Turn it over and it goes straight down onto that piece. Okay, you can open it up now, and then we're going to layer this piece straight down onto the inside layer. Again, I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. Okay, let's make sure. Yep. So that's going to go inside there and to there. Okay. Then we can layer our piece inside. Okay, so that's our inside piece where people can write their messages. Oh, I didn't like that bit, did it? Come on. Okay, let's get that down. And there we go, straight down and flat. And then it will close and it will sit like that. Okay, so before we layer, well, I suppose we could do that. What I'm going to do is that this piece now needs to go on top of this piece. So let's use the multi-purpose. There we go. That layers on top like so. So I suppose the hardest part really would be, or the longest part rather than the hardest part, is just the cutting down of the sizes really. Once you've got everything together and you've layered it up, you are good to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm aiming for this piece of cardstock to line up with the edge of the designer series paper, like so. Once I know it's in the position I'm happy with, what I suggest you do is you turn it upside down, line it up again, because what you're going to do is you're going to put the glue only on this section over here. This bit, it's got to stay glue free. So I'm just going to draw myself a little rectangle. Okay, then you can turn it back. Make sure it lines up. Okay, and then when you open it up, you can open it up, nice and flat, and you can just make sure that there's no glue on the other side. Okay, so that is literally how we make our card. So what we've got to do now is create our focal section. So bring in our piece of white. The first thing I'm going to do is right at the very bottom, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. Obviously, use whatever sentiment you have got available to you that's appropriate, obviously, for your card. This one, I'm simply just putting Merry Christmas at the bottom. There we go. And I've stamped that up in the real red. Then I'm bringing in my Pebble Path and I'm going to stamp my houses. So the first one I've got is a 2 block of house over here. And I'm going to pop that as far over to the right as possible. There we go. Then I'm going to bring in my second one, stamp that one up, and this time I'm going to move it as far over to the left as possible. Okay, that then gives me room for my little brick wall that I've got. And that will fit quite happily in between the 2 houses. There we go. Now what I do want to do is I want to add a Christmas tree. So I'm going to take myself a piece of post-it note and I'm just going to run it across where the wall is. I'm going to tap my Christmas tree in my garden green. Let's do that. So tap that. The garden green, And then I'm just going to pop it over the wall like so. Now my garden green ink is quite a runny, well, not runny ink, but it's quite nice and moist, and it's been newish. So what I'm going to do is, if I don't know if you remember, if you saw the video on Wednesday, I used the edge of my pen to take the ink off the ink pad and to colour my tree in. But because this is a fresh ink pad, what I can actually do is I can move with my Wink of Stella, I can move the ink around and make it sparkle without having to take any more ink off of the ink pad. So this is another way of using our Wink of Stella to make it sparkle. Okay, so just tap it at the end to make sure there's nothing left on it. I bring this up, and if I hold it there, you can just about see the sparkle of the Christmas tree, and you can see how the ink has moved around. Okay, so to save time, I have already done the rest of my card. I have sparkled the snow on the card. You can just about see it if I tilt it that way. There we go, hold it still, you doesn't go out of focus. So all across down the bottom, the Christmas tree, the rooftops, and even my little snowman has got a bit of glitter on him. Okay, so now we can literally layer that onto our card. And again, I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. I'm just going to tiny bit down. There we go. Preferably putting it onto the card the right way. There we go. So that are our two cards, or our Funky Fold cards for this week. So that one opens like so, and then that one opens like so. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. I hope you like the Funky Folds. I will be back again next week with a new set of cards and a new stamp set. But thank you for joining me this week. I've had great fun with this one, considering it's just a stamp set. Well, it's not just a stamp set, but it's a stamp set with no added extras. There's no dies or anything like that. There's not even a sentiment with this stamp set. But it is a really good stamp set. So thank you ever so much for joining me this week. Whatever you do for your weekend, stay safe and happy crafting. Take care. Bye.